On November 2nd, 1937, London, England, the landlady of a Belgravia apartment building discovered her tenant Edmund Whitmore dead in his flat, clutching a silver crucifix. His final journal entry spoke of a woman stepping out of a painting. Police who later searched his family's Yorkshire estate found only an empty picture frame and black scorch marks in the attic. This is the document recovered from the Whitmore case, November 1937, transcribed from the original. I'm writing this down because I need someone to know what really happened. You'll probably think I'm crazy. Hell, sometimes I think I am. But every word is true, and if you're smart, you'll take this as a warning. It all started when I inherited my Uncle Erasmus's estate up in northern England a little over a year ago. The guy had been dead for 7 years, and nobody really knew how he died. Found him at his desk one morning, face twisted up like he'd seen something horrible. Since I was his only living relative, everything went to me. The money, the property, and as it turned out, something else I really wish I'd never found. I showed up at Grimthorne Manor on this gross October day in 1936, when the fog was so thick you could barely see 10 feet ahead. The house was massive, all black stone and weird angles, like something out of a nightmare. Mrs. Blackwood, this ancient housekeeper who'd been taking care of the place, met me at the door. She kept giving me these nervous looks, and when I asked about my uncle, she just mumbled something about unnatural pursuits and crossed herself. Should have been my first warning. That first night was rough. Rain hammering the windows, wind screaming through the chimneys, and me wandering around with a candle like some Victorian ghost. The place was packed with weird stuff my uncle had collected. Old manuscripts, creepy artifacts, and this seriously disturbing collection of portraits. Every single painting seemed to watch you as you walked by. That's when I found the locked door to the attic. After digging around, I found the key hidden in a secret compartment in my uncle's desk, along with his journal. Reading through it was unsettling. He wrote about buying this special portrait from some dead colleague in Prague, claiming it had properties beyond the natural order. The later entries got progressively more unhinged, talking about whispers in the night, dreams that felt too real, and his growing belief that the portrait was somehow alive. The final entry, dated just 3 days before his death, was different. Written in large, desperate letters across 2 full pages. Written as if he knew that I would read it. Do not uncover the portrait. I have trapped her beneath the cloth. She cannot emerge if she cannot see. If you value your soul, nephew, leave it covered. Sell it to the church. Burn the house. I don't care. But do not look upon her face. She feeds on being seen. Below that, in a steadier hand as if he'd calmed himself, Edmund, please, learn from my mistake. Of course I had to see it. I know. Every horror story always says don't go in the attic, but curiosity's always been my weakness. The stairs creaked like they were screaming as I went up. The attic was empty except for one thing. A portrait on an easel, covered with a black velvet cloth. When I pulled off the cover, I actually stopped breathing for a second. The painting showed this incredibly beautiful woman, but something was seriously wrong with her. Her skin wasn't just pale, it was like looking at something that had never been alive. Her eyes were black, darker than anything I'd ever seen, but somehow they seemed intelligent, aware, and her smile, God, that smile, it seemed to change as the candlelight moved, sometimes looking sweet, sometimes looking like she wanted to eat you alive. I stood there staring at those eyes, completely frozen. Time just stopped. Then I heard this whispering, so quiet I couldn't tell if it was wind or voices. The words were just out of reach, like trying to hear a conversation underwater. When I finally snapped out of it, hours had passed. My candle was almost dead, and my legs were shaking. I threw the cloth back over the painting and got the hell out of there. Didn't sleep at all that night. I tried to go about normal business the next few days, sorting through my uncle's documents, meeting with lawyers, that kind of thing. But I couldn't stop thinking about the portrait. The whispers started following me around the house, even during the day. Mrs. Blackwood noticed I was looking pretty rough, but I just brushed off her concerns. 5 nights later, I went back. I had to. When I uncovered the painting this time, I nearly screamed. The woman had moved. She'd been facing forward before, but now she was turned to the side, like she was about to step out of the frame. And that smile had gotten wider, showing teeth that looked way too sharp, way too many of them. I ran. But the dreams that came after were worse. I'd be walking through endless hallways with footsteps following me, getting closer and closer. I'd wake up gasping, absolutely certain someone was standing next to my bed. But the room would be empty. My uncle's journal became my obsession. Turns out the portrait was painted by some guy named Lucian Mordaunt, who got burned for witchcraft back in 1672. According to legend, he'd made a deal with something evil, and his paintings were windows or maybe doors to places we really shouldn't know about. The woman in the portrait was supposedly his mistress, Cassandra Vane, who disappeared one day and was never found. Weeks went by, and I basically fell apart. Barely eating, never sleeping, spending hours just standing in front of that portrait. Cassandra. Yeah, I started thinking of her by name, kept moving closer to the edge of the frame. The whispers turned into voices, speaking in languages that hurt to hear. Sometimes I understood pieces, invitations, promises, threats. They made me feel terrified and weirdly longing at the same time. Poor Mrs. Blackwood tried to help. She brought the local priest, Father Morrison, but the second he walked into the house, he went white as a sheet and said he felt sick. He practically ran out, but not before shoving a silver cross into my hand and telling me to leave immediately. But I couldn't leave. Cassandra wouldn't let me. I knew she was conscious, that something lived inside that painting. Every night she got closer to escaping the frame, and every night the voices got louder, more demanding. They talked about spaces between spaces, darkness that existed before light, kingdoms where everything falls apart forever. Everything went to hell on the new moon. I woke up, or thought I did, to find my bedroom door wide open. My feet carried me to the attic like I was sleepwalking. The portrait was uncovered, and Cassandra had reached the very edge of the frame. Her hand. Jesus Christ. Her hand was extending out of the canvas into our world, pale fingers beckoning me forward. The voices became a roar that felt like it would split my head open. But underneath all that noise, I heard her speak. Her voice was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Release me, and I shall show you wonders beyond imagining. Refuse, and you shall follow your uncle into madness and death. That's when I understood what happened to Uncle Erasmus. He'd fought back. He'd been stronger than me. Because I reached out and took her hand. The second we touched, it felt like ice water flooding through my whole body. Images exploded in my head. Cities with impossible geometry under alien stars. Things that existed in dimensions we can't even imagine. The truth about what's really waiting just outside our reality. But then came the visions of our world, our immediate future. I saw London burning, not from house fires, but from metal birds dropping death from the sky. Entire cities reduced to ash in seconds by a light brighter than 1,000 suns. Children choking on poisoned air in sealed chambers. Skeletal figures stacked like cordwood behind wire fences. Plagues that would make the Black Death look merciful. Flesh rotting while still alive. Minds consuming themselves. Blood turning to acid in the veins. She showed me mankind tearing itself apart with an efficiency we haven't even invented yet. Millions upon millions dying in ways that would make the devil himself weep. And through it all, I could feel her feeding on it. On the fear, the suffering, the moment when hope dies in a human soul. She showed me that these weren't warnings or possibilities. They were certainties, fixed points, things that must happen because things like her need them to happen. We think we cause our own apocalypses, but we're just following a script written by things that feast on our suffering. I screamed and jerked away, but it was already too late. Cassandra stepped out of the frame smooth as silk, becoming more solid and real every second. The floor turned black and rotted wherever she stepped. Her smile was triumphant and eternal and absolutely terrifying. She spoke again, and her words burned into my brain. "You have served your purpose, descendant of Erasmus. The gateway is open. The others will follow." I ran, crashed down the stairs, through the halls, out into the storm. Behind me came sounds no human could make, and shadows moved without anything casting them. I ran until I couldn't breathe, and my legs gave out, collapsing somewhere out on the moors. When the sun came up, I made it to the village and then to London. Never looked back once. I'm writing this from my apartment in Belgravia, but I don't know how much longer I can stay. They're hunting me, Cassandra, and the others that followed her through. I see them in reflections, in the dark spaces between shadows, in the frost patterns on windows. The house is still standing, I hear. Nobody will go near it. People see lights in the attic window when there's no moon, and travelers on the moor road report hearing music that makes horses panic and dogs howl in terror. I'm leaving this as a warning. Stay away from Grimthorne Manor. And if you ever see a portrait of a beautiful woman whose eyes seem to follow you, don't stare at it. Just don't. The whispers have found me here. I can see her now, standing in the corner where the shadows are darkest. She's smiling that terrible smile and reaching out her hand again. I don't think I'm strong enough to say no. They'll find me like they found Uncle Erasmus, and maybe they'll think I went insane, or worse. But you'll know the truth now. The portraits are doorways. The painted eyes really do see, and Cassandra Vane is walking around in our world again. May God help us all.